And moving on, another day, another groundbreaking discovery in Israel, and taking a page straight out of Genesis, where Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt.
And finally, Israeli researchers say they discovered the world's longest salt cave near the Dead Sea. 10 kilometers of underground passages and chambers was mapped out over 2 years by experts from 9 countries.
Take a look at this. Israeli researchers say they discovered 10 kilometers of tunnels under the Dead Sea. Coincidentally, that's not far from the place where, according to the Bible, Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt.
They expect it to continue to grow as rain runoff washes over the Malham Cave's surfaces.
It's a very unique cave by that perimeter.
Well, these caves, however, were formed by natural erosion.
Mike Pompeo will visit Israel this week as the country gears up for...
In less than 1 hour, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will visit the Western Wall alongside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It is a historic moment in the U.S.-Israel partnership. It'll be the first time ever that America's top diplomat visits the Old City, officially accompanied by a senior...
Starting his tour with a call for unity. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is in Kuwait. After Kuwait, he will meet with leaders in Lebanon and Israel, including key ally, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Just weeks before Israeli elections, Pompeo's visit is seen as a show of support for Netanyahu, who is facing allegations of corruption.
The fact that Pompeo is going with Netanyahu to the Western Wall, actually a big deal? Is it significant, or is it an overblown aspect to this?
It's not significant in reality, but it's very significant in symbols. And in a conflict where symbols play a lot, and in a city like Jerusalem that is full of symbols, then clearly, yes, it does have an importance. It's a message.
The Security Council is watching the fast-moving events on the ground, but seems no closer to taking any action, despite a grim briefing from the top UN official normally based in Jerusalem.
A new conflict will be devastating for the Palestinian people. It will have consequences for Israelis who live in the vicinity of the Gaza perimeter, and it is likely to have regional repercussions.
As he spoke inside the Security Council, his boss was answering reporters' questions outside the chamber.
We were clear in the condemnation of the rocket attack, but now we believe it's absolutely necessary to avoid any scaling up and to have restraint. And our appeal is for restraint. On the other hand, I think the two things are disconnected, but our position in relation to the Golan Heights is very clear. It comes clearly established by the resolutions of the Security Council.
And on that issue, some of the US's closest allies, the 5 EU members of the Council, read out a joint statement making it clear they disagreed with President Trump's action.
Any declaration of a unilateral border change goes against the foundation of the rules-based international order and the UN Charter.
Construction on the longest and deepest gas pipeline in the world is set to begin. The East Med pipeline is an ambitious plan to export an annual 20 billion cubic meters of natural gas from Israeli waters in the Eastern Mediterranean to Europe. The 1,305-mile line will pass through Cyprus, Greece, and Italy and lie at a record 1.86 miles deep. A $7 billion project that Israeli Energy Minister Yuval Steinitz says is a strategic game changer for Israel.
It's the largest Israeli-European infrastructure project ever, the longest and deepest gas pipeline in the world that will allow Israel to become Europe's natural gas and energy exporter within just a few years.
Europe's dwindling gas production means it could need an additional 125 billion cubic meters per year by 2030. Part of the reason it invested $100 million to investigate the feasibility of the project. But there is competition. Last week, Russia and Turkey inaugurated the first stage of their gas pipeline to Europe, with a plan to export a similar amount. So who has the upper hand? Shoring up strategic defense for the pipeline and planning for the future, Greece and Cyprus are on the cusp of potentially massive additional gas finds in their own waters, potentially supplying over 40% of Europe's natural gas needs in the future. With the possibility of Egypt linking up its Zohr gas field at some point, the East Med pipeline could shift the entire energy dependence of Europe towards the Eastern Mediterranean.
I want to talk more about some of the specifics about what's happening on the ground shortly, but I think it was only a couple of days ago you had an announcement around Carmeltazite, a mineral found in one of your gemstones, officially being recognized here as a new mineral by the International Mineralogical Association. So quite a significant development here for you.
It is a very significant development. In fact, what is unique about Mount Carmel and the geology around it is the abundance of this unique mineral assemblage, which does include diamond, moissanite, ruby, sapphire, garnet, and of course, within the Carmel sapphire itself, the newly found Carmeltazite. And what is quite interesting about this is not only its uniqueness and rarity, which we believe which will have significant marketing value.
I mean, as far as what's being found here, we're talking about what is fair to say it's a relatively young country. Has it taken you by surprise as to just what is being discovered here?
Andrew, yes, it's a very, very good point you've made there. Israel sits on the Rift Valley system, which are very, very young rocks. But what we found in Mount Carmel are old rocks with minerals which date back to the early stages of diamond genesis in the planet itself. So it is very, very unusual. And I think what adds to that uniqueness is this assemblage of high pressure, high temperature minerals, of course characterized by diamond and moissanite and many others, which does make this a very unique occurrence. Not only do you have the location in Mount Carmel in Israel itself, but you have the uniqueness of this combination of jewels, which we anticipate Yossi Harari will truly bring out in a combination, a unique combination of minerals, probably centered around the Carmel sapphire. And I think possibly, you touched on it earlier, Andrew, is there perhaps is a bit of a sense of disbelief that a young geological country such as Israel can produce such valuable high pressure, high temperature minerals, which are chiefly found on cratons and very old pieces of crust.
So how does this all play into the Trump administration's attempt at Mideast peace negotiations? Both the decision to recognize Israel's authority over the Golan Heights and also the uptick in conflict.
Well, we should say that from the start, the chances of success of a peace plan were very, very low, and some people call that an overestimate. The conditions on the ground are very bad between the different parties. They're not really ready to sign a peace deal between them.
Natan, it's no secret that all of this comes as President Trump recognizes Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. How does that impact escalating tensions right now?
Well, this is a secondary issue. The Golan Heights, if you'll recall, were captured from Syria. They're not Palestinian territory under anyone's configuration. That is serious. The Golan Heights recognition itself does not affect the Palestinian arena directly. It affects regional tension, and especially tension between Hezbollah in Lebanon and Israel, and of course the Syrians to a certain degree, to the degree that there is a Syria now. But the Palestinians is a slightly different arena and usually affected by different dynamics. We're very close to elections in Israel. April 9th, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, is being challenged by a credible challenger, although Netanyahu is probably still slightly ahead. And this creates pressure inside Israel to react.
The UN says it's an unaccepted violation of a ceasefire and has warned that Gaza is on the brink of another potentially devastating conflict.
The peace negotiations are almost always focused on the West Bank and Israel, on the Palestinian Authority and Israel. And they sort of assume that the Gaza Strip will solve itself somehow. But the truth is the Palestinian territories are divided, and there are two of them. And without addressing the Gaza Strip seriously, it's a very hard thing to do, but without addressing it seriously and thinking about how it would fit into a diplomatic effort, it's hard to imagine a peace process succeeding.